Hi folks, G3 here, and welcome to another instalment of my journey to go green. Today I'm joined by Mrs. G3 and we are going to be planting onion sets and Mrs. G3's favourite, we've got some shallots as well.
I approve.
So we're going to be using these hopefully in a lot of cooking. Now we bought these packs from our local B&Q. They are just fairly cheap. We've got 8 shallots and they are called Germore, and we've got 60 of the red onions that are Carmen onions. Now we use these in a lot of our cooking. They're not expensive to buy from the shops, I know, but it's just really nice having our own supply. So once we grow them, we'll store them during the autumn and over winter, and we can just keep having onions whenever we need them. And shallots. Now we've not grown shallots before, have we? This is the first time.
Yeah.
So we're quite keen to see how that goes. Gone and put some compost on here already that we've produced from our own garden waste and food waste as well. Now the spacing we're going to be using, we've checked with the RHS website to see what it is, and they've recommended for them to be spaced 2 to 4 inches apart, which is approximately 10 centimetres, and also that the rows need to be approximately 12 inches apart, so that's 30 centimetres apart between the rows. So that's the spacing we're going to be doing, and supposedly all we need to do is push them below the soil surface so the tip is just showing. Now there is an issue with these, with birds pulling them up. I'm not sure why, but for some reason they like going for them and pulling them up out of the soil. So what we will also look at doing afterwards is just putting a little covering on top, just to make sure it's protected from birds for the time being, until they've managed to root and grow a little bit, and then we should be okay. So that's what we're going to do. So first things first, we're going to be turning over the soil to make sure that this compost is mixed in. So let's get on with that now. Yes, so the first thing is to turn the soil over. We're going to use the fork to do that, and it is just a case of getting in and mixing it through, just on this half here.
You can tell I'm not the expert, you know.
Well, I mean, that's the thing. We don't need to be experts to do this. Anybody can do it if you've got a little bit of space. Another thing that we're also going to be trialling is, yeah, that's it. I mean, it's just mixing it around with the sort of the layer underneath. So underneath, sort of about a few inches down, we've got the other soil that's already been in there. So it's just mixing those two around and making sure that it's a chance to get mixed in. So it's not just the fresh compost on the top. The worms have been having a go at moving that round naturally as well, so that's fine. I've got a rake. I'm just going to give the top a little bit of a rake to get it nice and even. Now, you don't need lots of expensive tools to do anything like this. You can easily pick up second-hand tools. You can try things like Freecycle or Freegal, where people might be giving them away. You could also go to boot fairs where people are selling them quite cheaply on a regular basis. You need just old tools will be fine. I mean, this rake is quite ancient now. I've repaired the top a little bit and put some extra screws in to keep it on there, but it's perfectly usable. If we go with the rows going this way, across there, then that'll be easier to hoe from the side, so we can get rid of the weeds from between them easily from the side. So I think that what we will be doing roughly is probably having a row about here, I expect. Now we don't need to do a drill for this or make a row, it's just to give us a bit of a guide. Now this measuring stick I've got here has a number of different measures on to show distances. I find it really useful. So this is 30 centimetres, so I can easily just pop that in, and then we're going to be measuring roughly another 30 centimetre row there. So I think that'll be fine. 4 rows, and we're going to put peas on this end, I think, wasn't it?
Yeah. Why should be 30 centimetres apart between a row, but only 10 centimetres apart between each column of the onions?
In truth, I don't know why. It's from the RHS website. If you know why there's a difference between the spacing of the individual items and the rows, please do let me know in the comments down below. We've got 8 shallots to get in here. Let's just put them on top of the surface and work out the spacing. On the packet, they're saying 15 centimetres between each of them. Now you've got the stick to do the the exact measuring, but I reckon that that's approximately 15. So it's about half of that stick. Yeah, a little bit further on, that's it. And then for the next one it would be there. Right, so that's not quite, so we're going to squeeze them up I think a little bit more than they have on the packet, and this is in line with what the RHS was saying I think. What we need to do now is make sure that these are below ground with the tip showing from above the surface. So for example here, I'm just gently pushing this one through the soil, and then I'm pushing it around and the tip is going to show out from the surface here. Let's just pop them in. It's nice soft soil that we've got here because of the homegrown compost, so that's really helping. Good, good, good. And what we need to do is label the rows so that we know which is which should be clear, but just in case. So I've got a label that I've marked shallot on, and I'll pop that there so we know that's the shallot row. We won't need to label necessarily what is in these rows, but it always helps if you can mark where some of these rows are when you're planting seeds, especially, so that you know where you're going to be weeding around and where you're expecting the row of things to come. It won't be such a problem with the onions and the shallots because it's going to be clear where they are. They're going to be poking through fairly quickly. So the next thing we need to do is plant the onions, and we'll do the same approach I think. If we mark out where they're going to go, so we can get our spacing right, we'll pop them on the surface where we're going to be putting them, and then we know it should be a lot easier. There were some that were soft, so we're only going to use ones that are nice and hard, but otherwise we'll be throwing the soft ones away. The spacing for these in theory is a little bit closer, isn't it? It's 2 to 4 inches. Now in theory you could grow onions from seed, but these are ones that have already been grown beyond that stage. It's a lot easier. You're basically buying baby onions. It just makes the process a lot simpler. So what do you reckon on that spacing? That looks pretty much about right to me. 2 to 4 inches between those. Let's just get the next row in then. So it looks like we might not have that many spares actually. We're going to get all the ones in here because of some of them being soft. I mean that's I guess the issue with buying them how we did in the sort of the cheaper bags. We will lose a few, but generally I think we're doing okay. Next thing is to repeat the process and put these just below the surface again.
Do you know what difference between onions and shallots in the cooking point of view?
I think the shallots is a milder flavour, isn't it?
No, shallot is really sweet.
Oh, okay.
After being cooked in a pan, they got their own unique kind of taste into it. I prefer shallot to normal onion.
So we've managed to secure a bit of netting that I had in the shed. We've cut it to the right size. I've got some pegs here, and so what we're going to do is peg it in from one side to the other. So yeah, I'll start over here. So this is just to stop the birds coming and rooting it up. Just looking to make sure it's fully down so that the birds can't get under. Final stage is just to water them in. So along the rows, and I've got the water going up just so it's not impacting the soil. It's more of a gentle watering then, and that will help bed those in. Gives a little bit of moisture to the soil as well. And we collect our own rainwater in butts to use during the season. We don't collect quite enough, we always run out and need to use tap water for part of it, but as long as we can, we're going to use rainwater.
When is a good time to grow onions?
Well, these can be planted from March to April, and because it's, with the end of March, nice sunny weather at the moment, so it's a good opportunity to get these in. and we'll be harvesting these from July to August. So it takes a little while to grow, but we'll get some fantastic crops off of these hopefully.
March, April, May, June, July. Kind of like long time.
I'm just going to mark the ends of the rows where we've put them. The onions and shallots have been in for a little while now. They're growing quite well through the netting, but the netting needs to come off, otherwise it's going to restrict it. At least it stopped the birds from pulling the onions out, which is something, because they did try. Just get the posts out where I can find them, or tent pegs I should say, and then gently ease it off of the onions. Do you know, it's coming off of these shallots quite easily. I was concerned it was going to be a problem, but that has just come away really easily. And let's lift these off of the onions, and again, because they're still quite young and flexible, I'm able to lift them gently off. There we go. Brilliant. And now the job of weeding. Now I could use a hoe between these to make sure that it's all nice, but because the soil was so dry, I'm just easily going to be able to lift these off myself and make sure that I'm very gentle with it. I find it quite therapeutic doing this, and I can protect the onions then and the shallots, and I can just lift out the weeds that I've got here, and those will go on my compost bin. There we have one hand weeded bed, which was very calming, relaxing. It's a nice quiet day, so it's just been pleasant working through the soil and removing the weeds by hand. I've got a nice bucket full of soil, but also the weeds in here that will go on the compost bin, so that was quite a load. And the end result here, weeds are from around the onions. They've been mostly removed. It's hard to get everything, but a lot of them are just resting on the surface, and they'll dry out and die. And now they're not encumbered by the netting. They should hopefully grow up nice and strong. I will give them a little water. We've not had a lot of rain, although it is spitting at the moment, but we've not had a lot of rain of late. They're now good to grow, assuming that the foxes and badgers don't jump on here overnight. That's how it goes if you want nature in your garden. It's some time since we planted the onions and shallots. They're growing nicely. We haven't had a huge amount of rain recently, which has possibly hindered their progress a bit. I did water them yesterday to give them a little bit of a boost, but they're doing okay. There's lots of green growth on them. They're not going to seed yet. The flowers, it's not sending up the flowers at the moment, so that's okay. Oh, I can see one coming here, so I'll just break that off so that it doesn't go to flower. Nice bit of onion. I believe you can eat these if you've got quite a few of them, so that's always worth bearing in mind. But they seem to be growing well, so that's all good. Quite successful. These will swell and we'll get a good crop off them by the end of the year, so we'll keep you informed of progress. Our onion crop is growing very nicely. Lots of growth there now. They are starting to wilt a bit, which will happen. They'll wilt and start browning off and dying off, and at that point we'll be looking to lift them. The shallots here, they have started to wilt over and they will start browning off, and then we will lift those and dry them. That will be the next stage of the process. It's harvest day for our onions and our shallots. We are in the first week of August, and they've been probably in a position that they could have been harvested already, certainly the shallots. But we've been a bit busy and haven't had a chance, but today is a nice dry day, so we're just taking advantage of that. And I know you're very keen to harvest the shallots because you want to start eating those.
Yeah, my favorite.
We haven't grown them before, but we do buy them, so it'd be good to start using them and count how many we got as well from the ones that we grew in the first place. Also, it looks like the onions are ready as well. Now, the reason that I'm saying they're ready is that the foliage has bent over. It's starting to brown, or quite significantly browning. You can see how much the shallots have sort of fallen over and started browning as well, and the onions are going that way too. So I believe that these are also ready to harvest. Now what we're going to do is get them up and then dry them so that they're fully dry. We'll try and get them with the roots intact as well. We'll get them up in that so that we're not damaging the underneath.
Hold the leaf up like this and...
Well, just to gently prise them up, yeah, just to support them whilst you're doing it. The soil is quite soft here, so it should come up easily. Yeah, see, they're just coming out nicely.
Ooh.
Well, they're looking good, aren't they? And then it would just be a case of getting some of the initial soil off, so I can do that with my gloves while you get the next ones up. So this came out of just one bulb, I think, didn't it?
Yeah, one bulb, and it contained like 10 shallots. Wow! 2, 4, 6, 7, 7.
And here we've got 2, 4, 6, 8, 9. There were 9 in this bunch. This is what they're looking like. Bunch of shallots there. We've got lots more to come up. Pretty good crop. What we've got here are 59 shallots in good condition. We had to get rid of one because it was soft. And there's no point keeping ones that are soft because they are going to go mouldy and could impact the rest of the crop. But that's not bad. Do you remember how many bulbs we had? How many we planted? Was it?
Can't remember.
It wasn't a huge number. I think the pack had 5 or 6 in it. I would imagine that there were 6 we planted because there was almost 60, weren't there? So I reckon we've probably got 10 shallots per bulb that we planted in the first place. So that's exceptionally good crop. So now we are going to store these and make sure that they're fully dry before we go and finish them off, ready for storage over winter.
Normally shallot will look like an oval shape. Yeah, the shape of it will be like quite oval. But some of them, they are quite big, look. Like an onion. I'm sure that the taste will taste like sweet shallot.
Yeah, we think that's because we didn't harvest them quite as early as anticipated, so they had extra time to grow. So they are probably a bit bigger than normal shallots. This is probably a normal shallot size, but some of them are more onion-like, but we're hoping that the flavour's going to be the same. Right, let's dry them. What a lot of shallots we got. We will move them round to keep the air flowing and drying them. Ideally, we would split them out even more, but we are a little bit limited on drying space because we're going to be using the other shelves for some of the onions that we're about to harvest. Now we're going to take out the onions as well. Same process as we did with the shallots, but because they are bigger bulbs, I'm going to use the fork to lift them up gently under and pivot so they lift out, so that we're protecting the roots as we go. Looking good? Yeah, they're really big, aren't they?
Yeah.
Pivot, lift. Great.
Let's go.
What a lot of onions. And there's an awful lot of onion leaves and flesh there as well. So, well, we've got a couple of spare shelves, and it will be the same process as the shallots, in that we'll move them around and dry them that way. That's a lot of onions and shallots drying. So we'll leave those to dry. Once they are, we'll be able to tie them together into bunches so that we can store them in the house when we need them. It's been a week or two, I think, since we harvested our onions and shallots. They're starting to get reasonably dry. Certainly the shallots are. So they're in a state where we're now able to prepare them for storage. The onions aren't in quite the same situation because they've got thicker stalks or stems. So the ones we've got here we're going to be using soon, so we've just trimmed those and we're going to take those indoors because they had quite chunky stems. The rest of the onions we've left in the greenhouse drying, but we're going to look at the shallots now. There'll be some that aren't suitable to tie up because they won't have the stalks on them. They won't be particularly long, so they'll be difficult. So this one's not got a great stalk, so we'll probably just trim that off, and we'll be using these fairly soon in our cooking. And then it's just a case of getting maybe, what, five of those, so they're not too many in a bunch. Just getting them round and then tying a bit of string round, long enough that I can tie it round, but also tie a bit of a loop in it. I'll get my shallots, get the string round and tie it in a double knot, reasonably tight. So I've got those tied together, and I'm then going to tie so that we've got a loop here, and we'll just be able to hang that up somewhere. These are nice and tight together, and we can snip them off with scissors when we want a shallot. Are you pleased with your shallot crop?
Keep me shut up for a little while.
I prefer shallots to onions. They're a different flavour when you're cooking with them, aren't they?
Yeah, definitely better.
So I think we would definitely sow shallots again. There we go. They were very easy to do.
In some sorts of meal, you prefer onion with it, really, like onion gravy.
Okay.
We're not going to use shallot for onion gravy.
Because of the stronger taste, is it? Yeah.
But if you want to fry, begin with fried onions and following with other things for your meal, shallot is best.
Okay. Now, we're using string here because we've still got some string to use, but equally, I've got some twool, which is twine made out of wool.
Can you spell twool for me, please?
Yeah, it's Twool. I'll include a link down below to some twool. Apparently the knot tying practice I did as a Cub Scout is coming in handy. So we've got an awful lot of onions still to tie up once they've been dried, but we'll do that at a later stage. So we've taken you through sowing our onions from the start and shallots, how we've done that, preparing them, harvesting them, drying them and tying them up. So that's the process that we've done to get a nice bunch of shallots and onions. Very straightforward. They didn't cost us a lot in the first place. You don't need a huge amount of space. They didn't need a huge amount of care. They just need watering to make sure that they can swell, and fairly regular watering so that they don't get stressed and start to bolt. That's where they try and flower early. I think we've got a pretty good crop, and we'll definitely do shallots again, won't we?
Oh yeah.
So there you go, folks. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, then please click the like button down below, and if you haven't done so already, then why not subscribe to the channel and click the bell icon so you get notified when we load up a new video. Well, thanks for watching. Until next time, bye.
Oh, you dare killing me? Neck, belly, and